Welcome back to another episode of Controversial Car Topics. Here it's more about the comments than the video. In this short video I'm going to discuss a question, statement or opinion, and I'm going to give it my definition and also the reasoning behind it by using examples. Almost everything in this video are opinions and not straight up facts. As soon as you're done watching this video, I invite you to discuss the topic in the comment section. The question of today is, what are tailfins exactly? What defines a tailfin? Let me start out with a little anecdote. Back in high school, I had an English teacher that came to school every day in a 70s Ford F-150. This might be a beater in the US, but more like a classic car over in the Netherlands. And as you can probably tell, 16-year-old Edward was hooked, and before I knew it, I was stuck in cars with my English teacher. He had owned more than one American car, including a mid-70s Plymouth Valiant, which, according to my English teacher, he regrets selling, as he liked the car very much, as it still had little fins. Little fins. Let me tell you another story. A while ago, I was at a car show with a buddy of mine, and I asked him the same similar question. I pointed to the rear end of a 1970 Cadillac and said, "Are these tail fins?" And he says, "Yeah." And I say, "No." Both these events bring me to the question of today. What are tail fins and what aren't? To give you an idea, both these cars I mentioned don't have tail fins, at least not in my eyes. I would define them as raised rear fenders or extended rear fenders. And I know tail fins by some definition are also raised rear fenders, because get ready, because I'm going to contradict myself a lot here. I'm trying to look for a definition or trying to find parameters on which I can determine whether a car has tail fins or not. And from a quick glance, it's pretty simple. Cars started to feature tail fins roughly from the mid-50s until the mid-60s, and sure enough, the easiest examples are the 1959 Cadillac, the 1957 DeSoto, or rarely any Chrysler product, and the 1958 Ford. A Rolls-Royce doesn't have or will ever have fins. Cadillac does. So it's pretty simple, right? A fin sits usually on top of the rear fender or makes the rear fender higher or may not contain taillights and is canted towards the rear or the side of the car. But here is where I step into the twilight zone, where it gets increasingly difficult to determine whether something is a tail fin or not, and it really gets down to a personal definition. Introducing the Oldsmobile model range for 1963, and mind you, 63 was a year when the fin was falling rapidly out of favor. Let's go through the ranks. We'll start with the budget F85, and here's where it already gets difficult. Are these fins, or is this just a higher fender line? It lacks the pointiness of, let's say, a Caddy from the same year, and I do not consider this a fin. But let me know what you think. I'd love to know, and that's what this whole video is about. But moving on, the next step in Old's ladder is the 88, and you tell me, are these fins? For me, they are. They are not pointy, but substantial enough for me to consider them fins, and here's where I seriously start to contradict myself. The last Olds model is the Grand 98, but now the rear still features raised rear fenders, but are entirely swallowed by the vertical shield-like taillights. And no, according to me, these are not fins, but just, tall taillights. But it doesn't stop there. It is safe to say that after 1965, the fins, as we know them from the 50s, have vanished. But take a look at Oldsmobile again, especially the Oldsmobile 98 for 1971. What was the idea here? This is 1971. The 50s are long gone, and the overall design of this car is not pretending to be retro 1950s. So where do these rear-end appendages come from? Are these tail fins or just raised rear fenders? I seriously can't give you an answer. And what if we go back in time again? Before the all-out fin war started, there were already some subtle hints on some post-war cars from the late 40s and early 50s. See, it's pretty clear with this white 1960 Caddy, it has massive, easily defined tail fins. But what about this 1952 black Buick next to it? Are those chrome tips or tail fins? They are from a time when the tailfin was just getting into the public picture. There is one term, however, that gives somewhat of an answer to this question. Many of these examples shown can be defined as vestigial tailfins, a remnant of the fin era. A great example is what I'm about to show you now. The cream-colored car is a 63 Cadillac with the obvious fins, but the white car is a 65 Cadillac 2 years later, and gone are the fins, in my opinion, once again, but are still straight-line vertical rear fenders nonetheless, better known as vestigial tailfins, inspired by, but not really tailfins. This concept of vestigial tailfins can be dragged on even into the present day. Cadillac faithfully stuck to the fin theme through the 70s and the 80s and even the 90s. And even today, with a bit of an imagination, the Toyota Prius has tailfins, and the same can be said about the Lexus UX. Take a look. But you can question whether this is space-age design, or retro space-age design, or just part of their own modern and aggressive design language. Anyway, that's it for today, and I hope your brain hurts by now. Let me know in the comments what you think counts as a tailfin, what car has them or what car doesn't, and maybe is there any other modern day car out there that, by your definition, has tailfins? Let me know. There are no wrong or right answers.